Welcome to our YouTube series for show hosts who are personal brands in podcasting and YouTubing. We are talking today about something that I've maybe talked about in past seasons of our podcast, Think Like a Producer. You can see all the videos from that show down below on a previous playlist. But I don't think we've talked about it in a while, and I want to bring it up because it is such a valuable resource. If you are a show host who what we would call the talent has never worked with a producer. And I'm not just talking about a producer who publishes your episodes and makes sure that things go out in the right way and handles all the technical side. That is part of what a producer does. It's part of what Worthville Media, our company, does. But working with a producer when you are the talent, the show host, is a unique experience if you've never done it. And you probably wouldn't have ever done this unless you'd been on a TV show or some type of higher end, bigger budget production. And if you've never been a part of that, or if you've not really done that for your own podcast, I want to just give you a peek into what it looks like to work with a producer when you are the show host, because that is my job. And I have done it for almost 10 years. And I absolutely love doing that with our clients who use us for that level of production. But I know that it can be tricky to understand what that even means if you've never done it. So here's an example. When a client comes into our studio to record a batch of episodes for their show, and they've hired our team to both record, edit, publish, but also to produce, to literally help them make the episode the best it can possibly be. Here's what we do. When they come in, we not only have prepped with them ahead of time on a call to understand exactly what content they want to capture in each episode, we've also gone over what is the audience for this episode? What's the purpose of this batch of episodes or this season of a show? What do we hope comes from this? What's the return on investment? What action do we want people to take after watching or listening to this episode? So working with a producer really starts before you even come in to record. It starts with what we call pre-production, and that can be strategy, that can be content advising, that can be brainstorming, that can be script writing. It's where we step in from kind of a clean, third party, not totally caught up in everything you think about all day. And we say, okay, tell us your goals. Tell us about your audience. Tell us what you want these episodes to do for people. And then we can mirror back to you in a pretty efficient way what needs to happen in each episode. So we'll help you make a content outline. Like, here's the 3 points we should hit in this episode. Here's the story you're going to tell. And here's about how long we should shoot to create this episode for. So pre-production is where the value of a producer starts. And again, you may have had a team member, maybe an assistant, or maybe your content manager who's helped you with that before. But if you've never had that, or if your team has never really experienced that level of support, it can be super helpful because production teams and producers are skilled at looking at your goals and knowing how to translate that really efficiently into the media you're creating. We're talking about podcasts, but this applies on broader levels. Okay, so then let's say you get to the studio, you've already done your pre-production call, you come in, you sit down, obviously your producer will be on the same page with you, and they'll be able to check in really quickly with you and be like, hey, did anything change from our pre-production call? Do you want to review any of the content one more time? And just, did today anything come to you that we should add in that you're really feeling in this moment? Because when you record podcasts, whether in studio or at home, if you're working with a producer, they're going to understand that you're a human and that you have had other stuff going on, and they're going to check in with you on your energy and make sure you feel confident and good and supported. So there's that human level of support that comes in when you work with a producer, because they have your back and they also have the show's back, and they're making sure that you're at your best, that the show is going to get its best from you, and that the content that's about to be recorded is still in alignment with what you talked about. It's just another layer of keeping all the plates spinning so that you can focus on delivering the stuff. which is what you're for. That's the talent. That's the show host job. Okay, so then when you sit down to actually record, the producer is going to be right there watching the whole recording, and they will be able to give you real-time feedback. So if, let's say, you recorded an episode and they notice that you forgot to say something they know is important to you because you talked about it in your pre-production call, whether it's a call to action or maybe a specific part of a story, maybe you didn't quite finish your point and they know that that's an important point because it's in your outline. When you finish that recording, they'll say, okay, awesome, let's do a couple pickups. And that just means adding on a couple more takes to capture those little bits that maybe didn't get captured in the first take that obviously can be added in post-production, which is editing. So your producer is also going to be watching out for, in real time during the recording, did everything get recorded that needed to be? They'll also look out for you as far as like maybe your energy dropped, or they could tell that you kind of lost your train of thought, or that they know they've heard you say that story or that phrase or that point in a better way. So they're just going to be there to help you make sure you get your best take. They'll be like, hey, give me a little more energy when you tell this story, because I know you can do an amazing delivery, and I think you just were a little bit distracted in that last part of, that episode. So they're there to make sure the recording gets the very best out of you. And they literally are your extra brain during a recording session. They are specifically there to kind of check your blind spots, because they can watch what you can't see because you're delivering it. You can't like watch yourself while you're, recording, but they can. And so they'll just say, hey, like, give me a little bit more here, or give me another take of that. And then once the recording is finished and everything's been captured the way you want, they'll be there again to just kind of wrap up the loose ends with you and make sure they get all of your notes, anything that else might have come to your mind during the recording that you want included in the show notes or wherever. And then they are the person who then goes back to the editing team and delivers all of that really important communication from what happened during the recording session to what needs to happen during the edit. So the producer is also the one who's making sure that what gets edited is in alignment with what the vibe was during the recording. Editors usually aren't present for a recording, and so they don't have that context unless the producer can translate for them. And then finally, the producer is also going to be reviewing all the final versions of the edited episodes so that they can make sure that what actually gets published is what was supposed to be. And they are just that final level of quality control and proofing. The editor can do a great job and still miss a couple of things. If you've never edited a podcast episode at a really fine level, you probably won't understand how easy it is to, even if you're a great editor, still miss a couple things. And that's why a producer is always going to have the final eyes on an episode or a show before it goes live, so that they can just catch any final little things that need to be smoothed out. So that's the role of a producer in podcasting. And I'm, again, specifically talking about personal brands and chat shows or solo style shows. There's a lot of crossover to producers of podcasts in other genres, but we're specifically talking about the kind of shows we make at Worthful Media, because that's what I know. But if that sounds valuable to you, if you've never had the experience of working with a producer while creating your episodes of your show, absolutely give yourself the chance to experience it, whether that's going to a studio, hiring a producer to actually manage your entire show. It can be a total game changer. Now, obviously, there's a cost associated with that level of service and production. So keep in mind that that may be a goal you're working towards. You're building your audience, you're building your budget, you're building your sponsorships, you're building your revenue to be able to afford that. But I don't want you to count yourself out just because you've never worked with a producer before and you're like, oh, that's just for other shows. No, the whole reason we created Worthful Studios and we bring clients in and we are improving our packages at all times and our retainer level of service is so that more and more of our clients can get that level of support and experience the results from it. And I'll leave you with this. You have so much wisdom and entertainment and stories and experiences to share because you're the talent, you're the show host. If you try to be your own producer as well, it can get very, challenging and overwhelming. You're literally filling 2 full-time roles if you're trying to be the show host and the producer, and obviously if you're also editing. Now, some people are just built for it and they're kind of unicorns, and you could compare yourself to them, but it probably wouldn't be very helpful unless you are one of them, which you would know if you were. It takes an extraordinary amount of time and sort of skill shifting to be able to both be your own producer, be the talent, and be the editor. And so unless you're already really suited to that, and you know you are, I highly recommend hiring a production house that can have a producer work with you specifically on your show. And that may just be at the front end, or it may be at every recording session, or it may be literally co-creating the show with you and doing like a pretty in-depth collaboration. In Worthville Media, we have multiple levels of retainers, so it can fit your budget and what you're ready for. But I wanted you to have that sneak peek because it's very powerful and it can bring out the absolute best in you if you work with a producer. And it may not be as out of reach as you think. So if you have questions, if you have comments, leave them below the video. Subscribe to the channel. We're dropping tips every week in our show host series. And if you've ever wanted to work with us and you're now even more incentivized, check out our services and you can see our different levels of support on our different retainers. You can email me at any time to explore how we can produce your show with you.